Hello and welcome to lesson 5.3. We're going to be talking about complex genetics today. Our lesson objectives are going to include solving Punnett squares that involve codominant alleles, incomplete dominant alleles, blood types, and sex-linked genes. Alright, so first we need to understand how genes are expressed. Okay, in dominant inheritance, the dominant allele often contains information that leads to the production of a protein, while the recessive allele often does not produce a protein. Okay, so that's how we express genes. It's the production of a protein, and that protein then causes the trait. Okay, so here we have dominant allele, uppercase B, and our recessive allele, lowercase b. Okay, and the big B is going to produce the protein. All right, not all traits that are passed to offspring, though, are simply dominant or recessive. There are a few exceptions to that rule. We've got incomplete dominance, okay? This is when one allele isn't completely dominant over the other. And this means that the offspring's phenotype will be a blending of the parental traits. Okay, so incomplete is blending. The heterozygous organism doesn't express the dominant trait. It's actually a mix of the two, okay? For example, okay, if we look at flower color and our dominant color is red and our recessive color is white, if we get a heterozygous flower for that, our phenotype for that would be pink, because pink is the combination of red and white together, okay? So, all right. So now we're going to practice a problem. This will also be in your notes, okay? So first, we're going to kind of just look at our alleles. For this, SpongeBob loves growing flowers for his pal Sandy. Her favorite flowers, Poofkins, are found in red, pink, and white. Use the information provided and your knowledge of incomplete dominance to complete each section below. Write the correct genotype for each color. If R represents a red gene, if big R represents a red gene and little r represents a white gene, okay? So that means that red would be big R, white would be little r, and pink would be big R, little r. So if we cross this information, okay, let's see, what would happen if SpongeBob crossed a Poofkin with red flowers? So that'd be big R, with a Poofkin with white flowers, little r. Okay, so we're going to complete the Punnett square to determine the chances of each flower. So I've got my big R on the side, little r up top. Once I cross those, I end up with 100% big R, little r, which is going to be 100% pink. Copy that down into your notes. You have a section with this practice problem. All right, then we have codominance. So this is when both alleles are equally dominant. Remember that prefix co means together. So that means that the offspring of a codominant trait, the heterozygous offspring, are going to actually show both traits of the parents. For example, if we have a white cow and a brown cow, and white and brown are codominant, then our heterozygous offspring would be a brown and white cow. Okay, so here's your second practice problem. We're crossing two heterozygous brown and white cows. Okay, when we do that, we get one homozygous dominant for brown, two heterozygous, and one homozygous for white. Okay, so that's going to be 25% brown, 50% brown and white, and 25% white. All right, moving on to sex-linked traits. Okay, our sex-linked genes, our sex genes, our sex chromosomes, are located on the 23rd pair of our chromosomes. Okay, XY, so we get one from mom, one from dad. XY is going to be male, XX is going to be female. All right, so if you notice, both of those start with an X, and that is because all eggs that females produce already contain an X. Okay, so it is the sperm that comes in and determines whether that second chromosome is going to be a Y, making that child a male, or another X, making that child a female. Okay, when we talk about sex-linked traits, these are most often found on the X chromosome. Okay, and males are more likely to express the trait than females because males only have one X chromosome. Okay, so they don't have that second one to kind of cancel out a recessive trait. All right, so let's look at this example. If we notice here, okay, I've got my two X's, and then kind of up above that, superscripted is our allele for whatever trait we're looking at. So I've got X big A, X big A, X big A, X little a, and X little a, X little a, okay? So the female must inherit two recessive copies to display the trait. So that would have to be this, X little a, X little a. It is also possible for females to be carriers of the sex-linked trait. So that means that this female who is heterozygous is carrying that recessive trait right there. She has the X little a, okay? When we look at male possibilities, okay, we've got X big A and Y, because Y doesn't have the trait on it. Y is tiny compared to X chromosome. Okay, let's just say X is this big, Y is this big. Okay, so you've got this whole space up here that there's no spot on the Y chromosome to cancel it out. So if it's present on the X, you're going to have it. Okay, so again, X, A, and Y, and then we have X little a and Y. Okay, notice the male does not have a second X to help mask the trait. This means that if he inherits the recessive copy, he will display the trait. Because of this, males are much more likely to inherit a sex-linked trait. Okay, so some of the common sex-linked traits that we'll talk about are hemophilia. This is a bleeding disorder that slows the blood clotting process. Okay, this is more common in males. And then we've got color blindness. This is the inability to see certain colors or perceive color differences. Just letting you know, if you cannot see the number in this colored circle down here, hopefully you're already aware, but you might have some color blindness. And then because of the X-linked inheritance, both of these conditions are more common in men. That is to say, or not to say, that females don't inherit these traits. Okay, just remember they just have to inherit two of the recessive. Okay, and that is less likely to happen. All right, here's our third practice problem. So we're going to cross a woman carrier for hemophilia to a hemophiliac man. Let's break that down. A female carrier for hemophilia. When we talk about a carrier, that means that one of the alleles, okay, only one, not both, one of the alleles is going to be the recessive trait. So we've got sorry, I just blinked out. Okay, so X, we've got a carrier, so only one of my X's is going to have the hemophilia trait on it, okay? Then my hemophiliac man means he does have it, so my X is definitely going to have that H on it, okay? Remember, Y doesn't have anything, okay? So we're going to set that up. Okay, on the left, I've got my female, so I've got plain X and then XH. Up top, I've got my male, so XH and Y. And then when I cross these, you can see my results there. So when we talk about sex-linked traits, we've talked a lot about percentages and things like that. With sex-linked, though, we break it down a little bit further. A lot of times you'll see questions about how many female offspring will have this, okay? So in this case, 50% of the females or girls are carriers. So they have one H, okay? 50% of the girls will actually have hemophilia, okay? Then if we look at our males over here, our XYs, 50% are going to be unaffected. There's no H there. And then 50% are going to have hemophilia. All right. Blood typing, another complex one. Okay, there are 4 major blood groups determined by the absence or presence of 2 antigen proteins, A and B. Okay, type A only has the A antigen. Okay, type B only has the B antigen. AB has both A and B antigens, and type O has neither. Okay, so it's missing both. Now, there are 3 alleles of the gene that code for blood type. Okay, we're going to use the uppercase I to indicate, I cannot remember what that indicates right now, but we're going to use the uppercase I as our main allele, and then we're going to superscript our blood type. Okay, so we've got uppercase I, then A, uppercase I, then B, and then our recessive, okay, or our type O that has nothing on it is going to be a lowercase I. Okay, so IA and IB are co-dominant genes, meaning that when inherited together, the offspring are going to have AB blood, so it'll be both present. Okay, again, the recessive form of the allele, type O blood, is going to be a lowercase I. All right, so this is our last practice problem to go in your notebook. We're going to cross a father that is type A homozygous and a mother that is type B heterozygous. So type A homozygous is going to look like, it's going to look like IA. Okay, homozygous, they're both the same, so that means both of those I alleles have that A present. And then heterozygous type B means that they're different, so we're going to have one IB and then one lowercase I. So our second one will have the missing B indicator. All right, so when we cross these, for my genotypes, half of my offspring are going to have IA, IB, and the other half are going to have IA, lowercase I. So what does that mean as far as our phenotypes are concerned? So that means 50% of my offspring will have a phenotype of type A blood. The other 50% will have type AB. Okay. All right. So our takeaway here, not all alleles are completely dominant. Some alleles are codominant and the offspring show traits of both parents. Okay. Codominant, remember, you see both traits. Some alleles are incompletely dominant and the offspring are going to have a blend. Okay. So usually with color, think of like what would happen with red and blue. That's going to make purple. Okay. So you think of what those two things would look like blended together. All right, and that sums us up for lesson 5.3. Go ahead and head back to Canvas and work on the practice problems that go along with this assignment. All right, y'all have a good one, and I'll see you next time.